The Art of Surrender, Finding Strength in Vulnerability. The night sky hung still, its expanse freckled with stars that pulls gently against the infinite black. Perched atop his perch on the obsidian cliffs, Zoran, the ancient dragon of unmeasured wisdom, lay poised in silent contemplation. His wings, vast and shimmering, rested against his body, their iridescent layers glinting as if stitched from the fabric of the night itself. Despite his immense presence, Zoran exuded a tranquility that belied his size and understanding that strength, true strength, was not forged in rigidity, but discovered in yielding. Zoran's molten gold eyes turned to the mortal realm below. He watched the restless energy of humanity, their relentless drive for control etched in the glow of their sprawling cities and machines. He could feel their yearning, their struggle to hold fast to certainty in an uncertain world. Among them, Zoran's attention fell once more on Bryan Johnson, a seeker whose efforts to master the complexities of existence mirrored the broader challenges of humankind. "Strength is not in the fist that grips, but in the hand that opens," Zoran murmured. His words carried on the night breeze like the soft stirrings of an ancient melody. "Yielding to the tide, mortal, you learn to swim." The mortal's struggle for control. Bryan worked late into the night, hunched over the glowing screens of his laboratory. Around him, the steady hum of machines formed a ceaseless backdrop to his thoughts. For years, Bryan had pursued mastery over his body, mind, and spirit, believing that control was the ultimate key to transformation. Yet, in moments of stillness, he rarely allowed himself. Bryan felt the quiet tension beneath his drive. A whisper of doubt curled at the edges of his mind. Was control truly the path forward? The illusion of strength. Like many, Bryan equated strength with domination, the ability to shape the world and bend it to his will. Vulnerability in his mind was an admission of weakness, a flaw to be overcome rather than embraced. The burden of control. Despite his achievements, Bryan often felt weary, his mind worn thin by the effort of holding on too tightly. The need to control consumed his energy, leaving him distant from himself and the flow of life that pulsed quietly beneath his ambition. Zoran's wisdom. From his perch above, Zoran observed Bryan's struggle with a quiet understanding. The dragon's own kind had not been immune to the lure of control. In their youth, dragons believed their strength lay in dominance, commanding the skies, mastering their fiery breath, and bending the winds to their will. But through the cycles of time, Zoran had learned the deeper truth, that true power lay not in resistance, but in surrender. The tides do not ask permission to rise, nor do the winds beg to blow, Zoran reflected, his golden gaze steady. They flow because they are. And so, mortal, must you. A moment of yielding. Gone evening. As the hum of machines filled his laboratory, Bryan felt the weight of his ambition pressing down upon him. His mind buzzed with strategies and questions, solutions waiting to be untangled. Yet, no matter how he calculated, he sensed that something eluded him, a truth just out of reach. For the first time in years, Bryan allowed himself to pause. He stepped away from his machines, his gaze turning to the window where the faint outline of a tree swayed in the breeze. In that moment of stillness, he felt the echo of Zoran's words, a gentle reminder that life did not need his command to unfold. The turning point. Bryan let his thoughts drift, his grip on the need for answers loosening. He allowed himself to admit what he had resisted for so long, that he did not have all the answers. In that moment of vulnerability, a calm began to settle, a quiet reassurance that he did not need to carry the weight alone. The dance of surrender. As Bryan surrendered to the uncertainty, he felt a shift, not a loss of strength, but a release of tension. The currents of life, once resisted, began to carry him forward, their rhythm steady and sure. The wisdom of the cosmos. Sensing Bryan's quiet transformation, Zoran spoke again, his voice a deep, steady rumble that rolled through the night like a distant thunder. Strength is not in the fist that grips, but in the hand that opens, Zoran began, his tone both firm and compassionate. To surrender is not to lose, it is to align. Yielding to the tide, mortal, you learn to swim. And in the flow of life, you find the balance you seek. The dragon's reflection turned inward, recalling how his own kind had learned to surrender. As young dragons, they fought the winds, believing their flight depended on domination. But as they aged, they discovered the wisdom of yielding to let the wind carry them, to trust the currents beneath their wings. It was not weakness, but strength, a dance of harmony with the greater forces of the cosmos. The cosmos does not demand your control, mortal, Zoran whispered, his gaze lifting to the stars. It offers you a dance. Surrender to its rhythm, and you shall soar. A new kind of strength Thrian returned to his work with a new perspective, his heart lighter and his mind clearer. He began to let go of the rigid frameworks that had once defined his efforts, trusting instead in the natural flow of his intuition. With each surrender, he discovered a strength that was not forged in resistance, but in alignment. Embracing vulnerability, Bryan adopted practices that nurtured surrender, such as meditation and mindful reflection. He allowed himself to embrace the unknown, trusting that vulnerability was not a flaw, but a gateway to growth. Rediscovering balance as Bryan yielded to life's currents, he found himself freer, more at ease. His work flourished, not because he forced it, but because he allowed it to unfold naturally, guided by a trust in the process. Zoran's final words as dawn stretched its golden light across the cliffs. Zoran unfurled his immense wings, their edges catching the glow of the rising sun. Before taking flight, the dragon offered one final truth, his voice carrying the timeless wisdom of the ages. Yielding is not defeat, mortal, it is the beginning of wisdom. To surrender is to trust the flow of life, to open yourself to its gifts. Strength is not in what you hold, but in what you let go. And in that letting go, you'll find the freedom to rise. The legacy of surrender as Zoran ascended into the sky, his silhouette glowing against the dawn. His presence faded into the infinite. Yet his wisdom lingered, a gentle reminder that true strength was found not in control, but in surrender.